All right. All right, man. So tell me what's going on.
Yeah, I think we just need to catch up and let me walk you through. Um, Man, I don't know if I just get in my own way or what. Things were so close except for that rolled wrist.
Yeah.
And man, I tried everything, and no matter what I did, in slow-mo, I could kind of do it, and then I'd speed it up just a hair. And I mean, then I kind of said, look, let's not play through it, but let's just keep going a little bit. And then I'd record, and I mean, my club is like, just whoosh. I'll go back a little further. So, I told you, I tried thinking about the right side, about the right hand more, about, just kind of not letting my left hand be a part of it. And, then I got really extreme with, just my right hand doing this and not allowing anything to happen.
Yeah.
And that, of course, screwed up my takeaway. So here I am 3 weeks later, and I'm working on my takeaway.
So what I think is a result of all of this stuff is just tension in the wrong places. What I want you to get to focus on is loading up from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
If this stuff is active, this stuff won't have to be. Your arms and hands can chill out more. And everybody gets into this kind of same habit where we tend to, without even realizing it, because it feels so normal and natural, to swing from kind of here up.
Mm-hmm.
And just the littlest bit of tension or speed in the wrong place at the wrong time creates this stuff where all of a sudden we're chasing our tail.
Mm-hmm.
When really getting this takeaway down, the whole truth to the whole backswing is just trying to move your arms and club as little as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So that's what I want you, my goal today is to get you to feel the muscles in your core and your legs, your glutes, your trunk to load up, to move the clubs, so that I was trying to think through, like, how can I show you how little the club's moving? So when I was kind of doing some practice stuff this morning, I was like, okay, if I do my takeaway, how much is my arms really moving from address? So if that was my takeaway, and I came back and just turned back to address, that's how much elevation and wrist cock I've added. So the club has gone from here to there throughout the whole takeaway. That's it. That little bit of elevation, that little bit of wrist cock, and that little bit of rotation, which really the whole thing that's moving is my hips loading into this right side and my rib cage turning is moving the arms. And my arms have to stay relatively very relaxed. And that's a tough one to feel at first, and impossible to feel if you don't have the association with your lower body leading the downswing. Because no matter how much you tell yourself, you'll see, like, dude, I don't have any power, so my hands have to tense up, because that's the only way I can move the club down from the top with any speed. So my shoulders, arms, and hands tense up immediately because they're just getting ready to fire on the downswing. And I know you haven't really been working too much on the downswing, but subconsciously your brain will still be like, I have to feel what I associate with the golf swing, what I associate with power in the swing. And that's the trick, is that, from the time the club moves from here to here, you're trying to get to stay out of messing with it. You're trying to just turn your body and let the arms move as little as humanly possible. And that's how the arms stay really connected to your body at the top. But if I start trying to get something out of them and move them faster because this isn't feeling right, I'm not associating it with power in the swing, then you kind of get stuck chasing your tail. So that's what I want to get you to feel, is numbing this. Your arms, wrists, hands, club kind of takes a nap, and this starts to be what you focus on. Because if this is working right in the downswing, then your arms and hands and club, they start to downcock, they start to shallow out, all that stuff automatically. So that was my goal today, is to get you to feel that.
So there's no doubt I'm thinking about my arms so much because it's my left arm that's causing this.
Yeah.
And even when I get to the top of my swing, I have way too much elevation, which tells me I'm just thinking about my arms.
Yeah, exactly.
And I cannot get most of the time I can't get a full rotation, which tells me my arms won, right? They won the race.
Typically, yeah. And so that's, if your arms look like they're all set at the top, and then you look face on, you've only turned 70 degrees, then yeah, your arms, this is why, we've talked about this a lot, like having face on and down the line is really important when you're working on this stuff, mirrors, so that you can see both, because it's really easy to be like, dude, my arms are perfect.
Yeah.
Oh shit, what happened? It happens to everybody. So.
Yeah, I've got both mirrors, but even then, yeah, I start leaning towards it and doing all that. So quick question. One thing I noticed with my grip, I've never felt comfortable with my grip to this day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the takeaway, it kind of goes to this. On the takeaway, no matter what I do, I think my grip is so loose, because that's what we're always thinking about, that as I start, my left hand goes,
Yeah.
There's this little, which I don't know is part of my twisting, rotating situation, or if it's just my head saying, you got to tighten up now. So there's movement going on. But can you see my hands okay?
Yeah, I can see you great.
So if I go here and I go here, I've always had a problem keeping these two together, because I don't want to put that much pressure on those two. I want to put it on my three, right?
Right.
Do you put pressure to squeeze those two together?
Not really. I mean, like here, I don't have my thumb and forefinger on the club. Let me move closer. So they're not even on the club, but they're just touching.
Okay, so you're not even pushing on the club. Okay.
No, I mean, I'm holding it all with just my 3 fingers.
Okay.
And then these guys are just lightly touching. And keep in mind what the purpose of this is. There's no special formula to say, oh, well, if I contract, this is actually a pretty big muscle here that bulges out. Mm-hmm. What you're really trying to do is just prevent the club from falling into your hands at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't get too caught up in like, oh, I've got to pinch this really tight. It's really just to make sure that the thumb is underneath the club to support it at the top, to keep it from doing this number and falling into your mitt.
Well, then one thing that made that takeaway look even worse is that I have got the tendency of being here and this thing just slowly creeps over.
Yeah.
So I even closed it more.
Yeah.
So are you good with that right there, basically?
I mean, I wouldn't go any stronger than that.
Meaning that angle?
Yeah, and left and right both. I mean, that's right on the cusp of being a pretty stout grip. I mean, if you look at your thumb and forefinger on the left hand, it's going pretty strong over to that shoulder.
Well, I'd like to have it be less strong if that's the case, because that's what's kind of tough, keeping my hands together.
Yeah, so let me show you what you look like.
Okay.
You see my hands okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of like this.
Gotcha.
And I would let both come over just a hair.
Okay.
To weaken it up just a smidge.
Go like that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
And like that?
Yeah, and then just get those two to match, and the left thumb kind of sits in the crease of the right hand a little, of the palm.
And then, is this okay? I've never asked you this, because I can't get my pinky in that slot. It just sits on top.
So there's a couple different ways of thinking. Typically, if you can't get that in there, your right hand needs to slide down the shaft a little bit more.
Okay.
You really want these to work pretty cohesively.
Okay.
So
get that in there. Okay.
If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can always do interlock.
I might have to go to that. Never.
Honestly, there's a couple different ways of thinking about it. I don't want to waste a ton of time talking about it. If you feel comfortable with an interlock, it's perfectly fine. Especially if you find that your hands kind of slide down and you can't get your pinky into that crook.
Okay.
Then you start getting to the point where you almost get it to a 10-finger grip, and your hands work independently.
I think it's finally time for me to try that, because I just never felt right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead with an interlock, and that'll get your right hand more cohesive with the left.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's no downside to it at all.
Okay. Okay. So when you're taking away, your hands aren't doing a thing.
When I make a mistake in the backswing, it's almost always too much movement and tension in my arms and hands every single time. Yeah, and that's really the only mistake that you can make when you think about it, right? Like, all I'm trying to do is load into this right glute, which that turning, and this gets this all going. Now I've made a full turn. If my arms do almost nothing, then they're going to be in the exact right spot. I mean, the reality is, if I literally did nothing, there's my full backswing.
Yeah.
And I've made a almost a full turn here, and my arms just have to do like that. And that's it. And as you mentioned, you started getting into a lot of elevation, and that's just a lot of arm activation. Now, it's not that you can't have a lot of arm elevation, but as I've talked about with the video on the side about how much arm elevation you can have, the more back issues that you have, the more you start looking at having more elevation, because it allows you to take down body speed.
Yeah.
As you have less elevation, you can add more rotational speed from your body, right? So it's just, you're just blending those two together. But when your arms are up really high like they were, then you've got to be really patient with your body coming down. And
yeah,
I don't know that
that's keep them nice and low. It's just too much. That tells me I'm doing something wrong when my arms are that high. I mean, it's just too much.
It's adding too much variables into the swing, right? Because now your arms have moved a ton, and when they really move as little as humanly possible, then there's so much less for them to do coming down. But again, you have to put more body speed into it, right? So that's the only trade-off with it. But I like to think of it this way: if you have you haven't had like back injuries and stuff like I have, and are dealing with all these crazy things, and you feel comfortable with letting your body rotate through there, then what I would tell you to do is have the minimum amount of elevation humanly possible, right? Where your arms are basically just left arms barely above your shoulder plane, right on it, right? From there, what you'll learn and feel is how simple your swing can be, because that's the simplest way to do it, right? The least amount of elevation is the stuff that moves the most is the stuff that moves in the arc around you, right? So the more your hands, that's the stuff that's gonna give you the greatest variability. Your hips can only do so much, your shoulders can only do so much, but your hands can go all over the freaking place. So learn the simplest way possible first. And then you're like, okay, well, I want to slow my body down a little bit. I want to add a little bit of elevation. And then you just start creeping up on it a little bit. And as you add elevation, you take out body speed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you feel the add of elevation by your shoulders? Certainly not your hands, right?
Well, your hands only get moved by your shoulders, right?
I'm just so handsy. I can just feel everything going on.
Yeah, and that's why I would really like to simplify and tame down the whole backswing, because you'll get it so fast if you realize your arms are literally, they're doing this. And you look at, if you take Tiger as an example of the extreme, he has very, very little elevation in his swing. And as he's changed his swing throughout the years, he's put less and less elevation into his swing. Back in the early 2000s, he had a lot of elevation, and then he's changed that, right? Now, I don't think that's a great idea for somebody with the back problems that he has, but he's just done that. But you can at least look at his swing, how it's transformed throughout the years, to say what he's really trying to do is get control. And he knows he's strong enough that he can rotate his body through, even though he's sacrificing his back as part of the process. So when you look at how much elevation he has, his elbow, from beginning to end, might move that far total elevation. When you look at that in the elbow, you're just saying it's not even below, it's still below the base of the pec. But you see his hands up high, and that's purely because of flexion. Right? So this is such a little move that you can get that really easy, right? Start there. Let's get all this elevation out. Because that will also help you stop wanting to be so active with the club and hands.
Okay. Cool.
So show me a backswing with no elevation at first. What you would associate with no elevation?
Want it down the line?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Let me move some stuff here.
When you're seeing me on your screen, am I in a small box, or how does it work for you, what you're seeing?
Right now, I see myself.
When I was talking, did you see me come up on a big screen?
Oh, yeah, you're on the big screen.
Okay, cool. I'm still getting used to all this stuff.
So, is that angled good?
Perfect.
Okay. So you said how I associate what?
No elevation.
No elevation at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Be like right here.
Perfect. All right. So now right there is literally, you're an inch below where Tiger is now and where he's been for the last 5 years, right?
Okay.
That feels like nothing to you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So now between where you are, when your arms elevate a lot, and where you just were there, That's where you want to find the happy medium. And I want to start at the bottom end, the easiest thing.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just gonna rotate right into that.
Yeah. Perfect. So that's about where I am, believe it or not, where you stopped a minute ago.
Look, oh, I'm gonna move my mirror over too so I can actually see.
Sure.
I brought the big old mirror.
Nice.
Is that okay?
Yep, perfect.
Now I can see myself. Okay, so
now all you have to worry about is just really thinking about turning properly, right? So that's actually quite a bit of elevation.
that is.
Well, I'm a little bit diagonal now. Let me show you something real quick. And this is important when you're practicing. So if I'm perfectly square in the camera, in between the ball and my feet, you'll see this much elevation. But now watch what happens as I turn slightly.
Yeah.
See how you see a higher gap between my hands? So this starts tricking your eyes. So what I just saw was that you had actually kind of gotten this way a little bit with my angle when I was seeing you, so it made it look like you have more elevation. So if you can basically come back to the left, as long as you can still see your mirror. Yep.
This?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, let me see. I need to find a way. How's this?
So if you could aim a few degrees to the right, the other way. There, yeah, that's pretty close there.
So this is a little diagonal for me, but that's okay. I'll get the feeling of it.
Well, I'll only check it for a second, and then I'll have you switch so you see it in the mirror. It's more important for what you see. But
okay, so what did you want me to do?
just a backswing to the top. Just focus on turning. Say that again.
With no elevation?
It's going to feel like no elevation, exactly. Exactly. So right there, you had about 2.5 inches of elevation, measuring off your elbow. So go back down to address. And now just leave your right arm right there. And look where your where your right elbow is. How much below it is your pec, right? Yeah, exactly. Now go to the top and see where it ends up with what you think is no elevation. Now put your hand there and see where it is again. It's right below the base of your pec, right? But it raised up about 2 inches, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So now what you were doing before was raising up 9 inches.
Gotcha.
And so now we're adding a crap ton of variable.
So you're saying do that, but literally an inch more than that or so?
Even right there is fine, but that's going to be very little. So you're just giving up some leverage, and you got to make up for it with rotational speed.
So just right.
Just turn, done. There you go.
That's pretty basic.
That's the goal, right? That's what I was saying. Like, I wanted to get you on a live lesson. Like, dude, let's just knock this out, because when we're trying to add, like, you know, you're adding a lot of elevation, and then you're trying to balance out that elevation with, you know, where you're getting your hands. Because if you start adding elevation, you get disconnected.
Yeah.
The way that your arms are moving in relationship to your spine is very different. When you feel like you have no elevation, it's going to feel more like your arms go around a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
I can do this for myself right here.
Sure. There you go. But you can clearly see that your arms are not going deep, right?
Yeah.
But to you, they probably feel more around than what you were doing before, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what, when we're talking about this elevation, you know, how much the arms are moving straight up and down in front of the body, it's really very little. And so that's where, if you just get the feeling of, like, it probably, again, you're feeling zero elevation, you know it's moving at least 2 or 3 inches.
Yeah.
That's plenty. That's all we need.
So that kind of answers one of my questions. I'm always looking at where your hands are, kind of, I look at that triangle of light, and mine were always way above my shoulder, which told me they're much more vertical, whereas yours were a little more towards the bicep than they were over the shoulder.
Well, mine's changed from just to help you understand, if you're looking at my swing over the years, after I broke my neck in 2011, the last thing on earth I wanted to do was rotate. Right?
Oh, gotcha, okay.
So I took out as much rotation as humanly possible. And because I had zero rotational speed, because it was extremely painful,
Yeah.
I had to make up with a crap ton of elevation and a crap ton of leverage.
Gotcha.
Right? Now, as I've gotten healthier and stronger over the years from recovering from my injury, I've started to come back down just because I like the feeling of using my body. And I want the consistency of having my arms move as little as freaking possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But as I get older, it's pretty likely that I will start adding more elevation in, but it's never going to be Davis Love, probably, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I want that efficiency of just the least moving parts humanly possible.
So me having that right, not so much the left roll, but the left push, which closes my right arm. I assume that's a left push, but it's also me just thinking, I got to get my arms up there fast.
Exactly. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So you turn well, then your arms have got to move quick and they got to do a lot. And let's get them to do less and then just match the body turn.
Okay, okay. So then for me, right now, I'll still think about my left, not rolling, obviously, I'll play with it, but the main thing is just rotate with 2 inches of elevation, hardly doing anything, and just see where it takes me.
Well, I don't think you even have to think too much about that left arm roll anymore.
Okay.
Because before you were doing that because you knew that your arms had to go from here to here.
Yeah.
You're like, well, shoot, how am I going to do that in a second? Well, I activate them right off the ball, right? Now that you feel like they're not doing anything, you feel like you have no elevation.
Yeah.
You're going to have a likely tendency to want to start getting active with your hands.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
So I think that's going to be the quickest fix to put everything together. Because I mean, you saw right away, like, okay, my backswing's there, right? And once you have that, and you're comfortable, you don't have to tinker with like, oh, I need a little bit of wrist cock here, a little bit of elevation, rotation. You know, it's just too much to try and blend all those together. Okay. It's just going to feel more cohesive as one movement is the goal.
Okay, and the takeaway should take care of itself with thinking about going to the top. Because I did the last video you spoke about, setup and, why my hands were coming under plane a little bit.
Right.
So I made sure my setup was good. I made sure my grip was really clean. It was better, but still a little bit under plane still. I mean, is that okay?
Yeah, well, what you were just showing me here, it wasn't under plane at all.
Okay.
So again, what's most likely happening is because you were trying to add a lot of elevation, you started moving your arms right away, and they get a little bit disconnected. And so it's really easy to, it's not even going to be that perceptible that you're going to feel this, but you just move them a little bit and the club's under, right?
Yeah.
This, if you look at address, my hands definitely moved, but it felt like nothing. It's just this, right? But when I do it right and just turn my body, the club goes outside.
Okay.
Right? And so now the difference is, it's very subtle, but now, because I didn't try to do anything with my arms or hands, the club stays on plane. So, and what you showed me just now, even like the first practice swing that you made, feeling no elevation, the club actually went above the plane.
Okay.
So again, the simple truth of the matter is, you're just doing too much. Right? Yeah. The less you do, the easier your swing becomes. And you start seeing all these things fall into place. Plane and path and club facing and all that stuff starts fixing itself. Okay.
And then that should obviously take care of the laid off club.
Exactly, because you were trying to blend, think about how much dialing this.
Yeah.
I'm doing Vogue Madonna stuff here. It's just way too much. It's just really done.
Yeah, my club butt was facing like.
I could see it a couple of times where you would go to the top and you're like trying to mess with this, and it's like, it's not where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And again, it's just too much movement. You're just trying to do too much.
All right. So I don't know. Should I do a couple more of those just to make sure the elevation is good, and then I'll just kind of see how that feels.
I want to see down the line again, but I also want to see face on in a minute.
Oh, okay. So I'll do it so you can see it, and then I'll do a few so I can see it, and then I'll go face on.
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, you're nowhere near going inside or under the plane now.
If anything, I was the opposite of laid off there, but.
Yeah. And that's just going to take getting comfortable with relaxing your arms more. Your arms still moved pretty quick there.
Gotcha.
Still pretty fast. You're going to slow that down and feel wider, like your wrists are doing less, your arms are doing less. There you go. Even a little wider at the top so that you have less flexion. Less flexion in your right arm.
Less flexion. Oh, why? Oh, gotcha. Yes, that's why when I do this, I'm thinking about body and less flexion. Okay. So.
Better. There you go. So again, with the flexion and getting kind of narrow and collapsed at the top,
yeah.
If you go fast, that's what's going to happen. Like if you try to get the club to the top, you're going to start getting pretty narrow.
Okay.
What I want you to practice now that you're feeling like you're having less arm movement, less elevation, you're turning. My wrist is barely cocked at all, really just responding to the weight of the club. Turning. Wide.
Gotcha.
And this is where you're probably going to drill to. You can go a little bit further than that, but don't go much because realistically, that last bit from here, like once your arm's at like 9:45, 10 o'clock, your left arm, you're really starting to transition back, and the movement from there is dynamic stretching. It's momentum of the hands going back, but you're already going back the other way. But if you practice going all the way up to here, and then, you know, as you add speed to it, your arms are going to be really long.
So do you even do a full body rotation or just shy of a full body rotation?
Usually just shy. Like if I'm really trying to be precise with something and checking something, I might, but generally I won't go all the way. It'll be pretty close, but I know that this last 10 degrees or 20 degrees of rotation is going to happen from dynamic stretching and momentum more than anything.
Okay.
So you're going to start feeling a lot more compact and a lot smaller movements.
So let me feel here.
Better. There you go. That's plenty far. In fact, for like a 7-iron, that's like a full swing.
Gotcha.
That's pretty close to a full swing.
Let me do this here so I can see it.
Okay. Yeah, no more than that for sure.
Yeah. So that was good. I saw like a light of triangle, like that big, kind of over my shoulder.
Plenty. Yeah. I wouldn't go any more than that, really.
Should I do less?
Again, it kind of goes back to what you want to feel. If that feels really, and that's probably going to feel really shallow to you because you've had so much elevation. So that's probably a really good compromise and a great spot to be in long term.
Let me do this one more time. This just feels totally normal when I'm doing this. Here.
Good. Yeah, great.
Okay.
Let me see face on.
Yeah. Make sure I got my tweet out of the way here. Let me see. All right, I'm going to move this over. How's this right here?
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, in that case, I can actually make this work for me. Oh, there we go. I have a piano right here.
Well, that'll keep you from going too far inside.
Yeah, there you go.
Pretty good. That's plenty of turn for what we're doing. It kind of looked like it might be the camera angle a little bit, but it almost kind of looked like you did this a little bit where the leg straightened up and hip slid.
Gotcha. Yeah, I still find myself every so often, I just got to go back to just, you know, that. Okay, let me make sure. Plus, I'm really distorted in this mirror.
Yeah. All right. So here's one little tweak I want to make to this whole thing, because this is what you're doing with the upper part of your body is fine once the lower body works a little bit better. So one of the things that I've talked about a lot is, obviously your upper body has to return twice as much as your lower body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in general, the vast majority of amateur golfers that I teach over rotate their lower body. So I talk a lot about turning the upper body first. The reality is, as you start getting better and more confident and you're no longer just letting your hips move all over the place like most golfers do, then what you're going to start feeling is loading into that right hip first. Turn your hip and start loading that glute first.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Well, you see how in all my videos now I stick my heel down.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
I go like that. Just
there you go.
Okay.
So that's what I want you to start to feel is, okay, the true sequence of it is the hips, and as your pelvis turns, this turns your whole upper body, right? Initially, the upper body's still turning a little bit more, but you're probably going to feel more hip and loading to the right glute first, so that this can get ready to go the other way, while this is still finishing its turn to the top.
Okay. Okay. All right. So now focus just on.
Yeah. Turn on that hip. There you go. Let your hips turn. Yeah. So you're sliding a little bit laterally to the right.
Okay.
So think turning on that hip rather than sliding laterally. There you turn on it. Turn. There you go.
Yeah, I am so distorted in this mirror. I look like I'm this tall.
The carnival mirror.
Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah. So what I want you to start feeling, a little bit of an exaggeration, but this would be a good drill for you to get like the big picture of how to load these legs, is as you're going back, I want you can lift your whole foot up and let this swing around. This is a big exaggeration. Think like a baseball player, right? But you're loading this right glute and hamstring really assertively. So if you let your foot come up, you'll feel how you pivot on that leg.
Yeah. Kind of like that.
Yeah. And then we just take out the lateral move by keeping that heel down and feel rotational on that hip.
You can get the lateral out by doing this?
No. If you're going to have lateral for sure. But then as you start taming this down, there you go. But I still want you to feel that load on the right leg. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
There you go. So now your legs should start feeling a lot more powerful, a lot more active.
Okay.
And your upper body, it's moving, but one of the biggest problems is that you've been too focused on arms and upper body stuff.
Okay.
And that's always going to fire first. If you start, again, this drill is a big exaggeration, but at least you start to feel your glutes and legs again.
Yeah.
And as you calm it down by keeping the foot down, then it just becomes more rotational, but you still feel the same muscle load.
Yeah, I think when I started trying to exaggerate is when I started sliding, and it kind of got away from me a little bit because I was really getting into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, you're doing a great job. Like most people, again, they turn too much and they move off that hip line.
Yeah.
And then you did a great job of calming that down, but then you kind of move laterally to feel this. It's in the middle there.
Okay.
There you go. You feel your upper body feels a lot more freed up now for that initial part of the rotation. And then your arms don't have to do much. But a lot of times people, if they learn to quiet their lower body down because they were really active with it, then the whole swing just becomes this, and this doesn't move at all. And then it's all arms, and then you're just trying to monkey around getting your arms to move right. Your arms, I like to think of it like if I have something heavy, like my impact bag, I'm not going to try and pick this thing up.
Yeah.
If I didn't know anything about golf and I was just going to huck this over here, well, I would use my whole body to move this thing. My legs, my hips, everything. And that's kind of the feeling that you're going to start associating with your backswing now, instead of just being tight and thinking about your arms.
Cool.
Make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Cool. So this should glue the whole backswing together for you, I think.
Yeah. Good. So let's see.